Armstrong.
Good morning to you. It is 9:31. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Police from the National Crime Agency will help tackle people smuggling gangs operating in North Africa. The Times says officers will work with authorities in Tunisia and Algeria to prevent an expected surge of migrant crossings heading for Europe this summer. The Italian government is predicting up to 400,000 people will try to cross the Mediterranean into Italy, 4 times as many as last year. Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick will begin a 5-day tour of North Africa and Europe on Monday. From September, the Met Police will no longer attend emergency calls if they're linked to mental health incidents, unless there's an immediate threat to life. The aim is to give police more time to focus on solving and preventing crime. A Met Police spokesperson has told The Guardian the force is failing Londoners twice, by sending officers rather than medical professionals for mental health incidents, and by preventing police from fulfilling their core roles. Now, ITV's This Morning returns today after former presenter Philip Schofield admitted to having an affair with a young male colleague. A former star on the show, Dr. Ranj, has hit out at what he calls a toxic culture. However, Philip Schofield has responded in the last few minutes. He says, "No, I no longer work on This Morning. I'm free to say this. I hope you've noticed it is the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice. This Morning is the best show," he says, "with the best people in all the years I worked there. There was no toxicity. You can listen to those persistently loud voices if you like, but the thousands of guests over the years, thousands of staff and crew, hundreds of presenters and contributors all know it is a family of wonderful, talented, kind and hard-working people." That's the response from Philip Schofield this morning. More on that as we go through the day, no doubt, and more on all of our stories on our website, gbnews.com. That's it for the moment.
Hello.
Good morning. Happy bank holiday. I could tell you what she was doing just then. She'd probably kill me. Right, Emily, you can talk now.
OK, well,
Let's
to
say
our
something.
top story of the day. Former This Morning star Dr. Ranj Singh has criticised what he calls the toxic culture on the show. This is a further blow to ITV.
Right, Dr. Ranj Singh said he had no knowledge of Philip Schofield's affair with a younger member of staff, but claimed that issues with the show go far beyond the presenter's own behaviour. He says he raised his concerns and was then taken off the programme.
Well, in response to the statement, an ITV spokesperson said the channel was fully committed to providing every opportunity for anyone who works with them to raise any concern or comments they may have.
So, after almost 35 years on air, 35 years? Wow, it's a long time. Can the show still go on? We've been asking what you think. But first, let's speak to royal and entertainment reporter at Sunday Mirror, Sarah Louise Robertson. Hello, Sarah.
There she is.
Look, OK, it's a bank holiday, right? OK, so, you know, the fact that sort of like people pop up when we least expect it is all part of the fun, isn't it? Right, now, so can you bring us up to speed? Obviously, this story has been running for what, 3 weeks now? Can you keep us up to speed on what's actually happened overnight, the latest developments?
Yes, Dawn. Hi there. It just changes constantly. It's an ongoing story that's constantly evolving, and we're hearing more and more and more to it, which I knew was going to be the case from the start when we saw the rumblings of Philip and Holly's so-called best friend relationship fall into tatters and disarray. And now we are where we are. What's interesting is that Philip's come out and defended the show again, the actual show and channel that sacked him and booted him out a few weeks ago. Maybe someone said to him and said, "Come on, you need to say something." But really, do we take Philip's word now on anything, given that he's come out sensationally on the weekend and said he lied about having a relationship with a junior member of staff on the show and had lied to the channel themselves? Can we trust Philip on his word? So we are where we are. We've seen Dr. Ranj has come out yesterday, and he's now spoken out to say that he left the show. And he pointed out and said to bosses that there was a toxic atmosphere behind the scenes that didn't sit well for him, especially with him being a doctor. He was noticing things and he brought it to the attention, and it was swept under the carpet. And that backs up what I've been told by former staff over the weekend, sources who I've been speaking to, who they themselves have told me about this toxic culture that's been going on behind the scenes. One person claimed to me that they were told to sign an NDA to go away quietly. So when you're hearing stories like this, Dawn and Emily, you have to wonder, is there more to it than what the channels say? The channels come back fighting us. We've seen they're denying these reports. Kevin Ligo yesterday was filmed denying it. So they're standing by that this morning's a very happy place, a very happy atmosphere, and that they knew nothing of this so-called relationship between Philip and this former member of staff, and they weren't aware of it, and that when they did ask him, he denied it, as did the former member of staff. What is interesting is the former member of staff, God bless him, who's trying to get on with his life peacefully, has now come out and said and denied that he was ever asked by this morning bosses if things were going on. So he's now denied what they're claiming. He's saying that's not true. He did go to them and he was never asked, and he was not really looked after. So when the person themselves in question is saying this, you really do have to ask questions. Who is telling the truth here? Is it the show? Is it the editors working there, or is it the people who have been involved and have been there behind the scenes?
Well, Sarah, I think it looks quite clear that there's lots of people trying to protect their own reputations, which is understandable. Philip Schofield's latest Instagram post saying that there's people with grudges against him or the show itself. It all looks rather bitter, doesn't it?
Well, you can point out, is it bitter? Does it look bitter? That's what he's saying. He's saying it's the same voices. Well, no, Philip, I'm afraid it's not the same voices. We're hearing from a variety of voices, different voices coming through. Who would have thought Dr. Ranch, of all people, who never puts a foot wrong, is absolutely terrified of bad press and was always very protective of the show. And I used to interview him over the years on red carpet. He was always sort of positive and enthusiastic. So for Dr. Ranch now to come forward with this really strongly worded statement, it speaks volumes. That's not someone we expect.
But Sarah, it's easy to come out now, though, isn't it? You know, where were all these people throughout? If ITV's This Morning was such a toxic place to work and everyone was bullies and all of this stuff, why was no one saying it at the time?
Well, one of the people that I've been communicated with over the weekend, they tell me that they were told to sign an NDA. Now, that's their allegation. Obviously, I haven't gone yet to the channel with that. I'm just compiling a dossier at the moment. But it's just interesting that people are coming forward and making these claims. But people are frightened. They are frightened to put their head above the parapet and to speak out. So this is why journalists, we have to investigate. This is why it's taken such a long time to get to where this is. Your own colleague, Dan Wootton, he himself said he went to the channel in 2019. That was 4 years ago, and it was swept under the carpet. And as I said to you yesterday, Emily, on this show, why was this huge, big fanfare, this big coming out for Philip Schofield back in early 2020? That in itself sparked suspicions, not just from journalists, but from members of the public. But it's taken until now for things to come through. And this is what we see with these big scandals, which we've seen with the BBC before in the past with Jimmy Savile. And I'm not liking it to that, but we've seen other TV scandals in the past. And it does seem to be after the event that things do come out. But look, we have to weigh up what everyone's saying carefully. We have to, there's two sides to every story. That's the point of a journalist, is we look at everything, we remain impartial, and we examine the facts and the cases that are in front of us. And that's what we're all doing. We're seeing where does the truth lie? Who is telling the truth? Something's clearly gone on. It's resulted in Philip leaving the show. It's resulted in the disintegration of his relationship, his so-called TV best friend, his off-screen TV best friend and on-screen wife, Holly Willoughby. He's no longer working on ITV. Why? why has he gone from everything? Why are people like Dr. Ranj coming forward now and making the claims that they're saying? Why is the likes of Philip's former colleague, your colleague, Eamon Holmes, saying what he said? Something stinks here, and journalists are getting to the bottom of it, and this is why there is the investigation and
Sarah,
the search and
Sarah,
the actual...
Just one final question. You mentioned Holly there and your paper today, or your sister paper, The Mirror. Holly, I will be staying. How easy will it be for her to stay? Because you don't look at Holly without thinking about Philip Schofield. Now, they were joined at the hip. So if you could just briefly say what you think Holly's chances of survival are in this situation now.
Well, Holly was ITV's golden girl, and they're still protecting her and keeping her as ITV's golden girl. But viewers are starting to turn against Holly, and they're starting to wonder, is she impacted in this? How much did she know? She's saying that she knew nothing, but people are questioning her statements and saying, really? You went on holiday with this man. You were socialising with this man. You're pictured with Philip and the person in question, and yet you say you had no idea of what was going on. So this has, unfortunately for Holly, it has damaged her brand. Whether she can survive it, we'll see. As I say, Holly is ITV's golden girl. She's being protected. She's got the backing of ITV bosses. And other people have said, well, what's Holly done wrong? She's done nothing wrong. So she probably will survive. However, I think that she will have lost a bit of favour with the public, and it'll be very interesting to see ITV's share prices as well later on today, because I think they will be taking a bit of a tumble too, but we'll see what unfolds with that as well.
Right, OK, interesting. Sarah Robertson, Royal and Intent reporter at the Sunday Mirror, thank you so much for joining us on a Bank Holiday Monday. Appreciate that.
I don't think anyone trusts what Holly Willoughby was saying.
The thing is, it's the fact of Dr. Ranj's statement, you know, actually naming the editor and the head of ITV Daytime, you know, it takes more than one person to create a toxic culture, doesn't he, as he said.
It does indeed.
There's more to come, I think. Right, and now we move on. Downing Street is reportedly considering price caps to help consumers deal with the soaring cost of food. Retailers have warned such a move will only make things worse.
Elsewhere, the Home Office is launching an ad campaign targeting Albanian nationals to deter them from migrating to the UK. The adverts, which will run in Albanian on Facebook and Instagram, will warn that people will face being detained and removed if they make the journey.
Right, OK. Well, joining us now to talk about all of these is political commentator Piers Pottinger. Good morning, Piers. Thank you very much for joining us again on a Bank Holiday Monday. Yeah. All these people coming to talk about such an important story. Because this one is one story that really made me sit up and take notice this morning. So I want to start with the food, because it is a bank holiday. If you're having a barbecue, you're going shopping, stocking up, good luck with that one. Have a lovely day. But capping on food prices, what's this one about?
Well, there's nothing new in this. In fact, it was Edward Heath who, in 1974, when Britain was had even higher inflation than it does today, he introduced it, and it was pretty ineffective. And I think what's happened here is that the government have put this idea out there, considering this, that it's all considering, to test the water and see what opinion and how people react to it. And, of course, people have reacted quite rightly, in my view, with horror.
Not too impressed, are they?
It's not going to work. And all the retailers have said that it's nonsense. 2 cabinet ministers, apparently, are very against it. We're going to get more Tory rebels up in arms about it. And here is another, I'm afraid, a piece of mismanagement by the government, because they shouldn't have... I mean, I think they'll just drop it and we'll never see any real action. Anyway, the whole thing's voluntary anyway, which makes it nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are old enough to remember the 70s, and that wasn't voluntary, that was enforced, wasn't it? This is voluntary. So this is like going to Sainsbury's, Tesco's, or all the big supermarkets and going, well, would you mind volunteering to... And it's on the basic products like milk and bread and things like that. Would you mind volunteering to just sort of like not make so much money out of these products? I mean, and supermarkets are going to go, yeah, right, of course. No problem.
Of course, and the other thing is that the farmers, and they've done this with eggs, if they're not getting the right price, they'll sell it elsewhere or simply stop producing them. And in France, where they're trying to implement this scheme, one of the biggest supermarket chains there, Leclerc, have said, no, we're not doing this because our customers will suspect we'll put other prices up to compensate, which, of course, I mean, is the honest truth. And supermarkets are publicly quoted companies, mostly. They have shareholders. and they're not going to sacrifice profit for the good of the Conservative government. And I'm afraid to say this is a really it's an ill-thought-out idea. Personally, I think they were testing the water.
Yeah.
They've now got the answer, and I don't think we'll hear about it anymore.
It's quite interesting because it's been attacked from both left and right, because you've seen poverty campaign groups saying this won't make an iota of difference, and then, of course, you've got the capitalists who are saying this is absolute nonsense and this is, you know, communist-style politics, really. But it's quite interesting that we've seen quite a lot of the Conservative Party seems to be adopting sometimes left-wing policies, let's say, or at least pitching them, you know, windfall taxes, looking at the potential to tax wealth, etc., etc. It does appear like maybe they're a little bit out of ideas.
Yes. I mean, they've been in power for a long time. They do feel like a government that needs to and a party that needs to refresh itself. And there's no long-term vision, as far as I can see, in almost anything they're doing at the moment. And nothing is working. I mean, we've also had the border control problems. We have all the strikes going on. I mean, people in this country are fairly fed up, and to start trying to tinker with supermarket prices is absurd. They need to address fundamentally the economy. And of course, you have a problem here with a divided government, because Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, who's supposedly in charge of the economy, is a staunch Remainer, and I'm sure would quietly love to see us go back into the EU. And the party is very divided. And, I mean, the chances of them being re-elected are, in my view, absolutely nil now.
Nil?
I can't see them getting back unless a miracle happens and Rishi pulls something out of a hat.
Well,
But I can't see what on earth that could be.
Talking of the divided party, the one area they do seem very deeply divided on is immigration at the moment.
Yes.
Suella Braverman comes out and says one thing, and literally the next day Jeremy Hunt says the polar opposite. So, but the latest one is the small boat gang adverts. What's this one about?
Well, the adverts, which actually, again, I think this has been rather overblown. First of all, they're in Albania. They're not actually in Britain. And they're aimed at trying to tell the Albanians if they try and come over illegally, they will be rejected or deported. Or it's a fair enough thing to do, in my view. And I don't think they're spending a huge amount of money on it. But, I mean, they've got to try and deal with this illegal immigration at the source, rather than when they're already here.
But Pierce, they probably should be doing it in India now, because our Home Affairs editor, Mark White, reported that only 28 Albanians have actually tried to attempt the Channel crossing in the past 3 months. So they need to be looking to other countries, because now India is at the top of the rankings.
Well, yes. I mean, the figures vary a lot, but at the moment, of the illegal immigrants in the year to date, Albanians represent the biggest sector. And therefore, I think it's perfectly fair to try and tell them, don't do it. After all, they can get a Ryanair flight or an EasyJet flight legally to Britain if they want to come here properly. And it's a lot cheaper than paying these racketeers to get them across on a dangerous dinghy. I mean, I don't think... I know people have got up in arms about it, but the Labour Party themselves also are divided on immigration. They say one thing, do another, and some of their plans are completely preposterous. The idea that you bring students over and dependents can work in special jobs for a short period of time. What are they going to do after the short period of time ends? They're going to stay here.
Yeah.
They're not going to go back home and say thank you very much. I mean, they're going to stay.
Well, it's the
here.
overstaying that's the big issue.
But talking of insane politics,
Yes.
the elections in Turkey as well. I mean, they've had to do basically a recount, haven't they?
Yeah.
So what's happened?
Well, I mean, it was very close, and Erdogan is a formidable opponent. The opposition, who were pitching themselves as the nice guys, suddenly swerved to the right and started saying we're going to send all the refugees home because they realised they needed to stop just being the nice guy. And Erdogan is a formidable man. I actually used to advise him when he was the mayor of Istanbul in 1994. and they were trying to get the Olympics. And he came out to Atlanta in 1996, where I met him, to talk about trying to get Istanbul the Olympics, which they failed to do, and then they failed again many years later when they had a bomb go off just as they were about to win the campaign. Instead, Tokyo got it. But Erdogan is both good news and bad news for us, because first of all, it's important to remember Turkey is the second biggest force in NATO after the United States. It's an immensely powerful military force, and of course, geographically, it's pivotal. And Erdogan, to his credit, did broker the deal between Zelensky and Putin to allow Ukraine to export grain, and that was a great achievement. But he is very much his own man, and he's famous for suddenly deciding on a whim to really upset the international community by introducing legislation that is extraordinary. Human rights people go nuts about him, because also his critics have a habit of suffering rather badly if he's enraged by them. So he's, on the one hand, this sort of weird autocrat, but also extremely clever with an enormously powerful military force. Bigger than Britain, you have to remember.
Yes, of course.
And, you know, it's important that we deal with him properly. He's given up trying to be in Europe. He's a maverick. And there are good aspects to him and bad aspects.
Well, it'd be interesting to talk to you for much longer about this, see what the relations are like between the UK and Turkey and what this means. But unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. Piers Bossinger, political commentator, taking us through, well, the top news, really.
Well, interestingly, the first person to congratulate Turkey on the election results was Putin.
Well, there you go, strong men. Anyway, celebs, including Steve Coogan, Joe Lycett and Lee Mack, have appeared in a campaign against sewage in the Lake District.
Right, organisers of Save Windermere campaign say the pollution is killing the World Heritage Site.
So joining us now is our North West of England reporter, Sophie Reaper. Good morning, Sophie. Please bring us up to date on this campaign.
Very good morning to you both. Well, yes, here it is behind me, Windermere in all of its glory. The sun is shining and it's shaping up to be a really rather beautiful bank holiday here in the Lake District. Now, the reason we're here today is because of the Save Our Lake event being run by the Save Windermere campaign group. And they say they're dedicated to returning this lake back to its natural state. As you mentioned, we're expecting a plethora of celebrities to come and throw their support behind this campaign. The likes of Steve Coogan, Lee Mack, Joe Lycett, they're all expected to appear here later today. Now, campaigners say the reason for this campaign and the necessity for it, is because a huge spike in phosphorus levels has caused growth of toxic algal blooms, and what that's doing is killing the wildlife in and around the lake, but it's also making it really dangerous for humans and their pets who want to come and enjoy the beauty of Windermere. Now, they say the reason for this is because of sewage discharge from a local United Utilities sewage treatment plant, which they say last year there were 246 full days of sewage that washed into the Windermere catchment area via storm overflows. Now, I spoke to United Utilities to get their take on it, and this is what they had to say. We completely understand the strength of feeling as many of us live and work in the local community, and we all care passionately about the lake and the work we do on behalf of our customers. The factors affecting water quality in Windermere are complex, and without targeted action by multiple sectors, we will not see the changes we all want. We are determined to play our part by improving our operations and their contribution to the overall health of Windermere. Now, it's quite clearly a very complex issue with two sides to it, but I think what's very obvious is that it really does matter to the people of the local area, and it's something that they're very passionate about.
Brilliant, that's great, thank you. That's Sophie Reaper live from Lake Windermere, where it looks absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, it's so beautiful, Lake Windermere.
And you just can't believe the water companies, you've got one job, right? Get the water to us, take it away. don't dump it in the Liri Lake.
Clearly, it's not so simple. But Lake Windermere, it'd be lovely to be there this afternoon.
I would like... Well,
beautiful.
We've got time.
We've got
After
time.
the show, we can
Leg it
get
up
up
there.
there. Yeah, absolutely. Just make research, obviously, make sure the water's nice and clean.
Well, yes, there is that.
Not having a good time going to the pub, sitting on the banks or anything like that. No. Right, still much more to come on the show. Up next, Philip Schofield breaks his silence on claims for toxic workplace at This Morning. This is To The Point on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Good morning, it's 10 a.m. on Monday the 29th of May, a gorgeous bank holiday for you all. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, and
Emily Carver.
Hey.
In the last hour, former This Morning host Philip Schofield hit back, accusing his critics of bearing a grudge and saying it is the best show to work on and considers his colleagues a family.
OK, right, that explains a lot, actually. Yeah, the Addams family. Right, food price caps are reportedly on the table at Downing Street, but retailers insist it won't solve the problem. What do you think? Get in touch at gbviews@gbnews.com.
And fancy owning the setting for a whodunit? The hotel that inspired Agatha Christie is up for sale for a cool £15 million.
Ooh.
Let us know. And as always, please do let us know your thoughts at gbviews@gbnews.com. Let us know what you're thinking about all of our top stories of the day. But first, let's get the news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Good morning to you. It's 10:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Now, sources have told GB News ITV's in crisis talks following the scandal surrounding Philip Schofield's affair with a younger male colleague. GB News understands it could cost the broadcaster tens of millions of pounds in lost advertising. Executives are reportedly bracing themselves for a dramatic share price drop tomorrow. This morning has returned after Schofield admitted to the affair, but just half an hour before the show aired, he released his first statement via Instagram, saying, "This is the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice." New details emerged about the presenter's relationship with a runner who was reportedly 15 years old when they first met. Police from the National Crime Agency will help tackle people smuggling gangs operating in North Africa. The Times says officers will work with authorities in Tunisia and Algeria to prevent an expected surge of migrants heading for Europe this summer. The Italian government's predicting up to 400,000 people will attempt to cross the Mediterranean via boats into Italy. That's 4 times as many as last year. The Home Office fears this will lead to a surge of migrants travelling to the UK. Robert Jenrick, the Immigration Minister, will meet his international partners on a tour of North Africa and Europe. Claire Pearsall says it's the right action to tackle migration.
Is completely correct that we start looking at where people are coming from, where the conflict zones are, and working with those countries to ensure that they don't come through to mainland Europe and make their way across and then into the Channel. And it takes an international community to stop these things, which is now what we're starting to see.
From September, the Met Police will no longer attend emergency calls if they're linked to mental health incidents, unless there's an immediate threat to life. The aim is to give police more time to focus on solving and preventing crime. A Met Police spokesperson told The Guardian the force is failing Londoners twice by sending officers rather than medical professionals for mental health incidents and by preventing police from fulfilling their core roles. The Liberal Democrats are claiming investigations into around 80 robberies a day were closed last year without a suspect being identified. The party says it commissioned research that shows 30,000 muggings went unsolved in 2022 across England and Wales. It's accused Home Secretary Suella Braverman of becoming embroiled in endless scandals whilst violent criminals are being let off the hook. Witnesses to major crimes, such as the Manchester Arena bombing, will be offered counselling, restorative justice and advocacy. The services are part of a £600,000 expansion of homicide services currently offered to bereaved families. Anyone who directly witnesses a major crime and any child or young person who knows the victim can be referred. At least 3 people have died after a boat carrying more than 20 passengers, including tourists, sank in northern Italy. The boat overturned due to strong winds on Lake Maggiore yesterday evening. That's according to local media. 1 person is understood to be missing and 5 others were taken to hospital. World leaders have been congratulating President Erdogan after his victory in Turkey's election last night. Rishi Sunak says he looks forward to continuing a strong collaboration between the UK and Turkey. The French President Emmanuel Macron and Russia's Vladimir Putin both congratulated the leader on his re-election for another 5 years. President Erdogan has taken his rule into a 3rd decade. He received just over 52% of the vote, with Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu securing nearly 48%. Ukraine's been hit with another wave of Russian airstrikes overnight. The capital, Kyiv, authorities there claim they shot down 29 of 35 drones and 37 out of 40 missiles in the attack. It follows And the largest drone strike on the capital on Sunday morning, the largest since the start of the invasion. Ukraine's indicated over the weekend they are ready to launch a counter-offensive, so their forces will be focused on building a defence against Moscow's attacks. Labour says the gender pay gap for women in their 50s won't close until 2050 at current rates. The party says the disparity at this age group is 11.7%, having closed by just over 5% since the Conservatives took over. Shadow Women and Equality's Secretary Annalise Dodds says her party would take action to close the gap once and for all. And iridescent fish with sharp fangs are among species of creatures discovered 2,000 metres under the sea. The scientists from the Natural History Museum took samples from the water around the Isles of St Helena and Ascension. One of the findings was a Sloane's viperfish. It's believed to have the biggest tooth-to-head ratio of any animals. Some specimens could be completely new discoveries. However, further analysis will have to verify this. That's it for the moment. More as it happens, as always. Now back to Dawn and Emily.
Well, breaking news this morning, Philip Schofield has hit back at his critics in a statement on Instagram. He wrote, "Now I no longer work on This Morning, I am free to say this. I hope you have noticed that it's the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice. This Morning is the best show to work on with the best people. In all the years I worked there, there was no toxicity. You can listen to those persistently loud voices if you like, but the thousands of guests over the years, thousands of staff and crew, hundreds of presenters and contributors all know it is a family of wonderful, talented, kind, hard-working people."
Right, yes. And pause.
He does protest too much, perhaps.
I think so, yes, slightly, because there are an awful lot of people and they are different voices, aren't they? But we really want to know what you think about this one as well, because it's not going to go away. Now, this comes after the latest development is Dr Raj Singh, a long-time contributor to the show, claimed he raised concerns about a toxic culture and then lost his job.
Well, in response to the statement, an ITV spokesperson said the channel was fully committed to providing every opportunity for anyone who works with them to raise any concern or comments they may have.
And head of human resources was one P. Schofield Esquire, probably. Just joke, by the way. Right, so after almost 35 years on air, can the show still go on? We've been asking that, but what do you think?
It'd be a shame if the show was axed because of the actions of one individual. I think that they probably need to rethink the structure and the culture of the work environment there, but ultimately I think the show should go on.
Did something that was pretty, questionable. And if it was him having an affair with a girl that age, it would have been a lot more of an uproar, I think.
We don't know both sides really, so I don't like to jump to conclusions, but if it's true, it is quite bad. But I don't know, I can see people are saying that Holly's a little bit uncomfortable in some situations, but I don't know, I guess we got to see what happens.
Ooh, interesting point about whether it had been a girl had been accused of affair of. But let's find out more, shall we? Joining us now is the showbiz journalist and very lovely person, an expert on all this, Stephanie Tecci. Stephanie, good morning.
Thank you for coming in. No worries.
Yesterday we were talking about this. Today we're talking about, again, we have 3 front pages of the national newspaper today covering different aspects of this story. What's happened overnight?
Well, overnight now, we've had, obviously now Philip has just come out with a statement saying that he feels like he's been attacked from the same old people with the louder voices. Daily Mail have also made claims that the male in question, actually was not asked about his relationship with Philip. So that is now another spanner in the work, because ITV have claimed that, yes, they did investigate it and both parties denied it as well. So, this is the story that is going to be ongoing and more people are going to be coming out. And then obviously we've had Dr. Raj Singh, who is a lovely man. I've interviewed him many times and he's always supported this morning. And I can imagine a lot of journalists are coming out trying to speak to anybody to get, you know, just a bit more idea of this toxic culture that people have been speaking about. And of course, he's come out and he said he's raised issues to the higher-ups at ITV. And what this resulted in him was him getting less airtime and eventually being booted off the show.
Interestingly, in his statement, he actually names names as well.
He does name names.
Martin Frizzell, the editor.
The higher-ups.
Yes.
And, you know, for him to do that, he must feel... I know a lot of people say, why now? It's because now it's all coming out. You know, Philip wants to say, oh, it wasn't toxic. But what I've seen or what I've heard is that they've been sweeping this toxicity underneath the carpets for so long. So now we've got this atmosphere where people can actually open their mouths comfortably about what's really going on behind this morning. This is just the beginning of many stories we're going to be hearing.
I mean, do you think his statement... Well, it's certainly a bold statement from him, suggesting that there are people who are out to get him and out to get the show, but out to get him personally. Comes across perhaps a little deluded, may I say that?
What's been annoying me about Philip Schofield is that he seems like he wants to shift the blame onto other people, and he has this very woe is me attitude. There is no smoke without fire. This show has been thrown into disrepute because of his actions. So he cannot be saying it's a lovely show and it's been attacked unfairly. No, it's because of his actions now. The public are looking at this show and seeing the duty of care. At the end of the day, he had a relationship with a man. He may be 18 and it may have been legal and consensual, but there's going to be questions about whether he has abused his authority.
And that brings us nicely onto the other front page today, which is Holly, who again has issued another statement, and we never complain, never explain what happened to that. The Queen was so right. Holly issued a statement saying, I was lied to, I knew nothing about this, which when you go on holiday together every year is a bit of a moot point. Front page of the Mirror today, Holly, I'll be staying. Will she?
She's defiant. She seems like she wants to cling on to her job, which I don't think is the best thing for her long run. She's a very talented presenter. She's loved. Even minus this storm, I think she still has a great career ahead. But this morning...
Do you think?
I do think she has on her own, but she's going to have to take some time out. I think her trying to rush back into the hot seat of this morning is not going to do no favours.
Because I'm thinking, because there have been reports elsewhere that this could be costing ITV tens of millions of pounds. That is huge. I mean, Phil Schofield really, and potentially the cover-up. We don't know who knew what when.
The front page of The Sun today about
costing the business huge amounts.
And, you know, I always say no talent is bigger than the show, and the show is a money-making machine. It has been for the last 14 years with Phil and Holly. And now if Phil and Holly aren't there, I don't know if advertisers are going to want to spend that cash with just Holly by herself. And even if a show, if it's been, you know, being painted out as it is affecting people's mental health.
Well, yes, and the whole show was about real-life stories and family values and all of this stuff, and it's been thrown into disrepute, and advertisers are already pulling out. So it could be game over for the show.
It can be.
Oh, how sad. People will just have to watch To the Point.
With us,
The other Golden Girls.
Yeah, the other Golden Girls, yeah. Do you want to be Holly or Phil? Which one do you want to identify
I'm being Holly, all right?
Oh, my God, thank you. You're not helping. Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Right, we do move on now. The government is facing a backlash from major retailers over its plans to set a voluntary price cap on basic food staples.
The British Retail Consortium said the measures would not make a jot of difference to pricing. Instead, they could thwart efforts to cut inflation.
OK, well, let's see. Joining us now is our political reporter, Catherine Forster. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning. Yes, this news yesterday floated in the Sunday papers that Number 10 were going to ask retailers to impose maximum prices on basics such as bread, such as milk, has really gone down very, very badly indeed. Leading supermarkets such as Tesco, Morrison's, Waitrose have all come out against it. They supported a statement from the British Retail Consortium, who said it wouldn't make a jot of difference, and in fact it could lead to food shortages because suppliers could simply sell their goods elsewhere, potentially abroad. Now, the government, for its part, is saying, no, we're not trying to, it's not going to be compulsory, it would be entirely voluntary, only if it's something that the supermarkets wanted to do. There has been something not dissimilar in France. There's been a freeze on some food prices for 3 months of this year, but the big supermarket there, Leclerc, failed to said no, we're not going to go for this. And quite a lot of criticism from the Conservative benches as well. Unnamed cabinet ministers coming out saying this is absolutely unworkable. People also like Jacob Rees-Mogg, like John Redwood, saying, no, we can't go back to this sort of 1970s price controls. It was done by Conservative Prime Minister Edward Heath in 1972, and 15 months later they were out of office. But of course the government is very, very worried about inflation. Food price inflation is 19%, and overall inflation at 8.7. Now, the government have said they're going to get that down to under 5 by the end of this year, but it's proving very, very sticky and much harder than they had thought.
A lot of people watching this morning, Catherine, will be thinking, well, actually, inflation is going down now, but food inflation prices are still going up 19%, not just here, but also in Germany. A lot of people who are going to the supermarkets today and looking at the sort of like how much they're forking out will be going, hold on, how much of this is greedflation? How much of this is actually the supermarkets profiteering?
Yes, well, certainly a lot of people do see, don't they? It's not when you go to the supermarket that the price of something you buy all the time has gone up by 5 or 10p. Often it's gone up by 30p, 50p and more. Now, the supermarkets are pushing back very, very hard against that. And clearly we know that farmers are being squeezed. Suppliers, farmers producing milk, for example, get very, very little. So there are questions to be asked, I think, certainly about the profit margins of the supermarkets. But of course, they would say they are working very hard to keep prices low. Many of them have introduced not just their own brands, but places like Sainsbury's have introduced not a sort of lower level, like a sort of budget brand, if you like. They tend to keep them on the bottom rows because they don't really want you to buy those. Places like Sainsbury's, again, some of their goods, they're price matching with Aldi. So there really is a battle going on between the supermarkets because, of course, we're all getting much more mindful of how we spend money. But certainly when you go to the supermarket now, it seems like every week prices are just going up, and whatever you buy, you seem to end up spending more and more money.
And there's one other story we want to talk to you about this morning, Catherine, which is about the police are failing to solve 80 muggings a day. Can you tell us a bit more about that one?
Yes, so this is information that the Lib Dems have put out today, uncovered by the House of Commons Library Research. 30,000 muggings went unsolved last year, and they're saying that basically only 8% of suspects are actually charged, and the worst police force in the country is West Midlands. Only 4 in 100 muggings there result in somebody actually being charged, which is pretty dreadful, isn't it? The Lib Dems are saying what this proves is, sorry, it's very windy here, what this proves is that muggings are effectively being decriminalised, and that criminals are being let off the hook. They're saying what we need is more community police officers. Of course, the government have succeeded in recruiting an extra 20,000, but the population since 2010 has gone up by something like 4 million. So per person, there are in fact less police officers now than there were back in 2010.
Wow, Catherine Forster, thank you so much. And apologies there for the sound problems. Obviously, we can't control the bank holiday weather.
Battling the wind there.
Battling the wind, absolutely. Doing a wonderful job there. Catherine, thank you very much.
May I just say something on the price capping? It is just a ludicrous suggestion, but what I would say that is positive is that commodity prices are coming down. That should trickle down into our supermarkets. You can't fix the prices at the supermarket. You may as well help the farmers out.
But you know, the trickle-down thing doesn't actually appear to work, does it?
No. They are coming down. And the supermarkets, the price of bread apparently has come down by 10p in most supermarkets. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll start seeing lower prices.
But did you know what, actually, over the past year, not all supermarkets have put their prices up. There's one that hasn't. Do you know which one? I'm going to reveal all soon. Don't go anywhere. Right, still to come, we'll be discussing the results from the Turkey elections. This is To The Point on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Dubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It is 10:23 and you're with To The Point on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, and...
Emily Carver.
Hey!
The Golden Girls.
Exactly, yeah. It's Team Girl on a bank holiday Monday.
Well, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has won a nail-biting election victory, extending his 20 years in power for another 5.
5 years, wow, yeah. But winning with just 52% in the runoff second round, he has never been more unpopular and half of the country is bitterly disappointed.
So let's speak now to journalist Ali Mustafa, who is in Istanbul for us now. Ali, we've seen the pictures of Erdogan supporters celebrating. What's the mood among opposition voters and what went wrong for them?
Well, this country has shown that despite what the perceptions might be for, it seems, a diminishing minority, despite what people say, Erdogan has won every election he has stood in. That's 11 elections in a row at this level. And the last 2, the previous one just ending last night in a runoff, was under a new system, the presidential system, so to speak, because this country used to be a parliamentary democracy, much like the United Kingdom. But in 2018, it switched to a presidential system. And under that, you're allowed 2 terms. which Erdogan, the second of which Erdogan won last night. And what that means is now he can change the shape or the face of what remains of the man behind me on my left, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the Turkish Republic. And Erdogan has now achieved something which will cement his position and his mark, so to speak, on the Turkish state, on the Turkish bureaucracy, on the deep state and politics he already had.
And Ali, what does this mean for the British public? What does this mean for relations with Turkey and Erdogan?
They're both out of the European Union, for one thing. The UK after Brexit, the Turks have been trying to get into the European Union now for 50 years. They've been shown a lot of carrots, but those carrots haven't materialized into a stew, so to speak. And I think now there's a realization that among a lot of Turks, especially the supporters of Erdogan, that you don't really need the European Union if you can make something called the Turkic Council, which can have energy-rich countries like Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, have military might of Turkey. It's advancing quite rapidly when it comes to defense tech. And it has great relations with the United Kingdom, which will grow even further at the cost of the European Union, which faces an energy crisis because of the Russia-Ukraine war. So a lot of these moving parts in this entire region, Turkey's in the center of it, as we know, and these changes now, it seems, will be cemented and continue at a much faster pace after Erdogan's victory.
There is a lot of concern over here and in the European Union about Turkey's relationship with Russia. They do, Erdogan and Putin do seem to be quite close. Can you tell us a bit more about why that could be a cause for concern?
Well, look at it this way. Both Erdogan and Vladimir Putin started their presidential careers, or their leadership careers, so to speak, at the same time. Putin came in the late 1990s, early 2000s, cemented his position with the war in Chechnya. Erdogan won election in 2002, took office as prime minister. So they both know each other quite well. And while relations did dip in the early 2010s, 12, 13, because of the war in Syria, after the downing of the Russian jet in late 2015 by the Turks, the relations started to, I wouldn't say mend, but there was a consolidation, there was a step back and realization, which basically led to a change after the coup in 2016, when Erdogan made his first trip out of Turkey, post-coup, to St. Petersburg, Russia, where he met Vladimir Putin. So I don't see that relationship changing. If anything, it'll strengthen even more as Turkey turns its attention more towards the energy resources, becoming a transit hub of sorts for Russian, Azerbaijani, Caspian, Turkmenistani energy sources, and basically mixes them all in here and then passes them on to Europe. So this relationship between Russia and Turkey will strengthen, I would say.
Thank you very much indeed, Ali Mustafa, journalist there in Istanbul, live from us in Istanbul. A hugely controversial figure.
Oh, absolutely.
Not Ali, obviously.
No, Ali is not. Ali looked quite nice, to be honest with you. I think that was a bit mean of you to say that.
It was a bit mean. Should we go to some views? Let's go to some views.
Yes.
What are people saying?
Well, Ali's on the phone, he wants to talk to you. Yes, exactly.
Ray has got in touch about Schofield. You know, people say they're not interested, but then, as Dawn pointed out in the break, the views come flooding in, so you know.
Yeah, exactly. And everywhere I go at the moment, it's like the hairdressers. I know, it doesn't look like I've been, but the hairdressers just say, oh, yeah, I know, I'm not bothered. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? What's the latest? What can you tell us? And it's like, I think it's human nature to be interested in what's really going on. Yeah, and gossip, especially with TV. And this is a big, well-loved programme.
Exactly. Ray says, Schofield and Willoughby, not important. We don't care. Sack her and move on. War, economy, health. Give me a break.
Bit harsh on poor Holly.
But Dan says ITV Daytime needs to act quickly if they want to save the show, which is certainly true. I think they've got 6 days left, according to one report we received here.
Yeah, quite, yeah. And meanwhile, Patrick, good morning, Patrick. Philip Schofield is now saying it wasn't toxic and he is being picked on. Why is everything he says so accepted at face value?
Patrick, don't worry, we don't accept it at face value. We dig.
No, we dig. Absolutely, we get to the bottom of what's really going on. Oh, I've got to tell you about Gordon the Gopher.
Now? No?
Do you want me to tell you now?
Well, I think we've got... Can you do it in 20 seconds?
No.
OK, we'll wait.
We'll come back to Gordon. Gordon the Gopher. We'll wait. More to come on that, Gordon.
I want to know. I'm very intrigued. Still to come, we'll be discussing the latest in that Schofield scandal. The former This Morning presenter has hit out at critics. That's after your morning news with Aaron Armstrong.
Hi there, it's 10:30. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. ITV is in crisis talks following the scandal surrounding Philip Schofield's affair with a younger male colleague. That's according to GB News sources. It's understood it could cost the broadcaster tens of millions of pounds in lost advertising revenue, with executives bracing themselves for a dramatic drop in their share price tomorrow. Philip Schofield has hit back at claims of toxicity. At This Morning, in a statement released less than half an hour before the show went to air today, he said this: "It's the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice." Police from the National Crime Agency will help tackle people smuggling gangs operating in North Africa. The Times says officers will work with authorities there to prevent an expected surge of migrants heading for Europe this summer. The Italian government is predicting up to 400,000 people will attempt to enter Italy. That's 4 times as many as last year. The Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, will begin a 5-day tour of North Africa and Europe today. Police will no longer attend emergency calls if they're linked to mental health incidents. That's from September, unless there's an immediate threat to life. It's to give police more time to focus on solving and preventing crime. A Met Police spokesperson told The Guardian the force is failing Londoners twice by sending officers rather than medical professionals for mental health incidents, and by preventing police from fulfilling their core roles. At least 4 people have died after a boat carrying more than 20 passengers, including tourists, sank in northern Italy. Those on board were celebrating a birthday when it capsized and sank in a storm on Lake Maggiore. And 19 survivors managed to swim to shore and avoided serious injury. More on all of those stories, you can visit our website, gbnews.com.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
A quick look at today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2345, €1.1513. The price of gold, £1,576, 25 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 7627.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Welcome back. It is 10:37 a.m. in the morning, this bank holiday Monday. This is To The Point on GB News with Dawn Neeson and me, Emily Carver.
Happy bank holiday. Hope you're having a lovely day. Right, OK, now, but if you want to escape, and, you know, some of us might at the moment. Hello, Philip, how are you? It was the inspiration and setting for two of Agatha Christie's most iconic work, and it's played host to all manner of celebrities from Noel Coward to the Beatles.
Wow, now Berg Island Hotel, complete with the 21-acre island off the coast of Devon, is on the market. Well, you're going to put in a bid?
What, a cool 15 million? Yes, absolutely. You going to bid me on that one?
Perhaps we can go fund us.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. What's the address? Right, our South West of England reporter, Jeff Moody, took a day... Why does he get jobs like this? Took a day trip out to the island to find out more.
The sea tractor that takes you to Burr Island only lasts a few minutes, but it takes you back in time. On the island, the 1930s are in full swing.
It is just an amazing place, and of course it has one of the largest collections of Art Deco antiques and artefacts in the country. So as it is now, Noel Coward, Agatha Christie et al. Would have walked on those same floorboards. They would have been touching a lot of the same bits of architectural interest. So it has that feeling of history, deeply seated within it.
So says Giles Fuchs, the current owner. Over the years, guests have included Winston Churchill and President Eisenhower. Head of guest relations, Vlad Krupa, told me the parties on the island are legendary.
There are many parties. Some of them I can't really disclose. Because it's saying what happens on the island stays on the island. So if you want to have an exclusive party, so pretty much when you hire the whole hotel, it is not just the hotel. You need to think that when tide comes in, you have actually hired the whole entire island for yourselves.
Guests come here from around the world to experience the hospitality and the food.
It's pressure that we can't handle. It's, you know, it's cooking great food, keeping it seasonal, keeping it simple. To us, keeping it simple and just trying to put a show on, just like out front.
A show that drew the attention of the world's most prolific author, West Country writer Agatha Christie. But it wasn't so much the glamour that appealed to her imagination. It was the setting itself. In arguably her greatest novel of all time, certainly the one that she said she was most proud of, and then there were none. 10 strangers receive a summons to come to a mysterious house on an island off the coast of Devon. When they get here, the storm creeps in. They find themselves trapped. And every night, one of them ends up dead, until there's just one left.
And it's not difficult to understand why she chose this as a location, because it's in the winter when the sea is up and the wind is blowing. It does feel menacing. It's a very different feeling in the winter with the storms coming off the Atlantic.
Giles is philosophical about selling. It's time for new input, a fresh pair of eyes.
I think I'll be fine with it. I'll say goodbye and I'll return, and I've done my bit. I'm leaving it better than when I found it.
The hope now is the new owner will continue Giles's work and Burr Island will remain one of the most magical and mysterious hotels in the world. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Thank you, Jeff. That got very dramatic halfway through there, didn't it? It was like, what?
They say journalism is about storytelling, and I must say Jeff Moody does it very well.
But hold on. He is down on a beach in the sunshine, and we're sitting in the studio.
In the basement.
I could be that dramatic. I could do that. Hello, hire me. Right, OK, well, enjoy yourself, Jeff. Don't eat too many chips or anything down there. Right, we move on now, though, to go through some of today's top stories with our wonderful panel. Well,
who do we have?
Yes, exactly. We have the gorgeous Bushra Sheikh.
We do.
Good morning.
Good morning. Of course.
And the legend. His words. He told me to say that.
Mike Parry.
I don't get the sobriquet gorgeous then. That's only reserved for the female presenter.
You are gorgeous.
You are gorgeous. Absolutely.
If I'm allowed to say that, sorry. Sorry to objectify you, Mike. Anyway.
I accept.
And a proud Evertonian.
Absolutely.
But not hungover.
Not hungover and not celebrating.
No.
We believe we're a mighty club and you don't celebrate missing relegation.
Yeah. Oh, Mike, you do sound miserable.
Well, no, I'm very relieved, but that's relief born out of despair, you know?
But commiserations to Leeds and Leicester fans.
Well, indeed,
So the club's relegated
that's
yesterday.
not on the front pages of most of our
on the
papers.
back pages. I like back pages. Don't you? What's wrong with back pages? Are you back pagist?
I prefer the front page myself.
OK, fine.
All the magazines inside.
Bushra, then. What's on the front page of The Sun?
Oh, so we are talking about Philip Schofield.
Oh, yes.
Now, this has kept people entertained, hasn't it? Well, you know, I actually don't want to use the word entertained, but it seriously has brought up and raised a series of questions, and people have been talking about it for the last 2 or 3 days. But at the moment, ITV loses millions of sponsors, have quit, and staff fear as jobs because this morning the show might be axed.
It must be anxiety-inducing if you're, you know, a producer, a runner, you know, someone who's just working on the programme.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point because at the moment we're talking about the stars. We're talking about, you know, Philip Schofield, Holly Willoughby, who, let's face it, you know, are not going to worry about paying next month's mortgage if they still have mortgages. But there's an awful lot of young backroom staff there, the young producers, the assistant producers. And if the show does get cancelled and a new production comes in, they might be out of jobs as well. So there is a lot more to this. And Bush, the other thing I think a lot of people are forgetting are, you know, it's like, you know, the whole mess that Philip Schofield has created himself, let's be honest here. It's dragging a lot of other people into it, isn't it?
Well, it's also developing by the minute, isn't it? I mean, you know, on the internet now, there's allegations now that deals were struck between newspapers and production companies to keep this story out of the headlines in exchange for other stories and advertising revenues. All that's going to come forward. I can see their original problem, because when I was running TalkSport Radio, right, our lead presenter, it was just so indisciplined, it was all going wrong. And eventually, I had to say, that's it, OK? And I actually had to, you know, reject the advice of the commercial department and say, you've got to go, because, you know, you're not turning up for shows and all that kind of stuff. Within 10 days, after a drop of 50% in audience and a fall-off advertising revenues, I was running around the City of London trying to find him to bring him back, and I had to pay him more money when I did. So the point I'm making is that when you've got somebody who's so dominantly a star, you know, in the media world in which we live, you've got to think very seriously about taking them off screen.
Do you think there's any chance of that happening with Philip Schofield?
Well, I mean, the point is now, it's all very well changing things, but, Dawn, let me give you a football analogy. If you get rid of your centre-forward, who's going to score your goals? So it's all very well saying, yes, you're going, but who takes its place to restore the numbers? You know what I mean?
Well, that's very true. But, Bushra, do you think Holly is equally tainted by all this?
Absolutely.
Not equally, but
but somewhat. I mean, what I was thinking about is that surely at some point they would have sat down and thought this is going to have implications beyond ourselves, because the show has more than just the presenters. It's an entire team and body of people that bring that together. So knowing that this story was going to unfold at some point, surely they would have thought that this is going to affect potentially people's jobs at ITV.
Well, they were all just hoping it would go away, presumably.
Yeah.
Well,
they were. I mean, you know, the audience getter is the most difficult person to get rid of if there's problems, because what do you replace it with, you know?
Well, the head, the woman that invented This Morning, 35 years ago,
Yep.
she says now that it's time to rest the show, and it can't.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Remember what happened to the News of the World?
Really, Mike? Do you?
Listen.
I don't.
I do. I do.
Why?
Without a shadow of a
Because
doubt.
35 years of a show, which is a brilliant show, because of presenters.
Once the News of the World were fingered for having interfered with the phone of Millie Dowler, do you remember?
Yes, of course.
But it turned out eventually they might not have done. But the moment that was levied, Rupert Murdoch closed down the News of the World. Too toxic a product. All the advertisers were doing a runner. I think this is the same in television times. I wouldn't bring the show back as This Morning.
What about considering the fact that sometimes you need a really bad situation to happen to revamp a show? Maybe this is the beginning of a new This Morning.
I certainly don't about the future of This Morning. I care more about, you know, what was going on, whether there was inappropriate behaviour, those sorts of allegations of cover-ups and so on. What this tells us about the media, what this tells us about showbiz. I couldn't care less about the future of This Morning, but perhaps I'm alone.
But you couldn't bring it back under This Morning, could you, Emily? I mean, could you?
Just do something else.
Yes, but the title, the actual title, This Morning. The minute you see that come up on the screen now, your first thought's going to be, this is the Schofield scandal show. It's not a different show anymore. It's just an extenuation of something terrible that's happened.
Well, look, obviously we know that there is an investigation that needs to be done here, and you know, and I'm going to stand by that. I don't think we don't know everything that's happening at the moment, but this certainly has raised questions, serious questions, and this does need to be investigated. But I do feel sorry for the people that have worked tremendously hard for so long on this show.
Exactly.
I agree.
Should we move away from the This Morning drama? Because there are some of our viewers who couldn't care less, although I would say that a lot of them do, even if it's secretly
I think we're getting a lot of messages in, but you know, keep them coming. Let us know what do you think. What is the new website again? I keep forgetting it, Emily. Go on.
The news website is, well, our email is gbviews@gbnews.com.
So we've changed it, haven't we?
We've changed it. It's even more simple, gbnews.com. So please do get in touch. We love reading out your views. Shall we move on to Turkey?
Yes.
What's going on in Turkey?
Erdogan has now won the election, and this is now 20-year rule continues for him. And when I was reading about this, I know that Turkey itself is split. So this isn't a decision in Turkey where everybody's saying that this is what we wanted, because in Turkey we have Muslim groups that want to stand firm in Turkey and raise that bar and say that we are an Islamic country and we want to have that, and those are the things that we want. And on the other hand, you've got everybody that's saying, actually, we want to progress in a different way, so let's have a new leader. But overall, I've been seeing that people have been elated and they're really, really happy.
Well, this is quite extraordinary, because one interpretation could be that 48% of people rejected Erdogan, and therefore there is a strong cohort of people in Turkey who want a more liberal, perhaps Western-facing type democracy. But he's still got huge amounts of support. That's if everything with the election was kosher, of course.
He's got support at home, but he's seen to be a thorn in the side of the West, isn't he? Even though, I mean, initially the whole idea was that the massive army that Turkey have got, and as being a part of NATO, would be a good thing, except that actually, a lot of his policies are anti-Western, and they're still waiting, aren't they, for a decision as to whether they can enter Europe, enter the European partnership. And he seems to be doing things that aren't really very good for the West. On the NATO situation, he blocked Sweden becoming a member of NATO. And everybody's saying, well, hang on, the whole idea is solidarity within NATO, not trying to split it up, you know what I mean? So, I mean, he's a very distinctive politician and not really, to the taste of a lot of what you'd call more Western countries, you know what I mean?
But also, you've got to look at the fact that he wants to put his people first and his country first. And although it was a very close vote, and it was nearly 50-50, wasn't it? We're looking at that. He does have this support. And I'm going to say that Erdogan is that politician, that individual that has this resilience, that he stands firm. He does not give in to, let's say, or cower or pander to the West, if we want to call it the West. He has his beliefs and his values, and he stands firm on that. And I respect that. I think it's really important for people to have that, because these days it's very easy to just fall into the trap of let's follow everybody else.
Actually,
strong stuff, Bushra.
Yeah, but
strong
it could
stuff.
apply to some politicians in this country who we do need to actually say something and actually mean it. Right, shall we move on? This is a quite depressing story from The Times, Mike.
Yeah.
The National Crime Agency.
Yes, it is. I'm not sure if it's depressing or not, but years ago, when Tony Blair thought it was a great idea to smash up Iraq, and then David Cameron followed up by smashing up Libya because he wanted to be a sort of war hero, nobody at the time thought, well, I wonder what's going to happen to the people of these countries when these, because both countries, basically, historically, were tribal countries, and only a strong man like Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein could keep a grip on it, a brutally hard man. Get rid of the brutally hard man all over the place, country split up, and now we're in a position where we've got to go there to try and stop the flow of up to 400,000 more.
Well, that's why it's depressing. 400,000.
It's depressing in that that's going to happen, but I think it's quite encouraging that we're actually now taking some proactive treatment.
Do you really think British police are going to be able to do anything to stop these people from trying to cross to Europe?
Well,
these people are so determined.
I totally agree, but at least they've identified they're going to go after the smuggling gangs, OK? So they're trying to smash up the criminal network. I mean, do you remember for years David Cameron used to say, no, we're going to keep overseas aid at whatever it was, 0.71% of national... And the whole idea was to try and keep people in their own countries. Now, this is much more positive, a policy than just building palaces for the leaders of these countries who took all the money and bought Rolls Royces.
The irony is, when countries get a little bit more wealthy, they actually makes people more mobile. So people can make that journey.
It does.
So I think aid might actually, help.
We can't seem to fix our Met officers in this country, and we are a very established economy, and we can't resolve that here. To think that that's going to widen out and somehow fix everybody else's and all these smugglers, it's not going to happen. And the other part of me really believes that why is it that we find ourselves going into these countries because of a political agenda and destroying the things that they have in those countries, leaving them to then deal with it by themselves. And then this is the backlash. This is what we face afterwards.
I agree with that.
Well, we have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
But you'd be happy with, not 400,000, but them coming to this country?
Would I be happy?
You're implying that we sort of triggered the problems at this...
I believe, again, when it comes to migration, you're going to have the individuals that take advantage of that always. And you're going to have cases where people it is a real and it's a fair case and want to come. But 400,000 is a lot. And if that's the estimation, it is too much. And we have to do something. But I seriously don't...
Of course, a lot of these North African countries are former colonies of France, of Belgium...
Exactly.
Of other countries.
Sometimes these are problems that we've created ourselves, and then we just think that, they're just going to fix it. But then we end up having to go in there and provide our resources to sort it out.
I think a lot of the time when we go into other countries, it is for good reason, whether it turns out to actually make matters worse or not, or open up more room for terrorism and such things.
I mean, what good reason did we have to go into Libya? I spent a lot of time in Libya because I was there when the Americans bombed it. It was a newsworthy place to be. And actually, it was a very well-run country. It was a dictatorship, but it was very well-run. Today, it's not very well-run. It's a gangster state, That's what we did. We turned it into that.
Perhaps we need to give up on exporting liberal democracy. There's a big question for a bank holiday Monday. Should we give up on exporting liberal democracy?
Meanwhile, what are you having on your barbecue? I mean, it's like... We've got one quick story to go. Bushra, let's go to yours. The Guardian. Police in London no longer attend emergency calls related to mental health incidents. What's this one about?
I find this really bizarre because what they're saying is the Met Police is going to stop going to mental health call-outs. But why would you do that? Because if it's something that... If it's serious, that's what the police's job is. And mental health often is linked to physical violence, crimes, things like that. So it's not like... when we look at an isolated situation with the mental health, it's not about hospitalisation. These are individuals that are acting out criminal activities.
I
This is
think
bizarre.
I think the issue here is not that the police get involved at the start of the incident, but then sometimes stick with that person for 8 or 10 hours at a hospital whilst the person is waiting for a consultation, and that part of the police work has got to be handed over to somebody else, because during that time they could have investigated 3 or 4 burglaries, you see what I mean? But they're actually minding somebody that's been arrested for mental health problems.
So then who's supposed to deal with these people?
Well, this is the point. You've got to rebuild the system.
The NHS? I mean, goodness me, accident and emergency is already carnage most evenings.
But it's the mental health care system and the caring system that needs looking at.
Yeah.
But, I mean, obviously, you know, we had an example recently where somebody was having a mental health issue in the middle of the street. They were a danger to themselves, they were a danger to other people. Who are you going to call? You have to call, surely, the police.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even know what else to do.
I agree. I mean, Dawn, you must remember when we were in Fleet Street 20 years ago, this thing, Care in the Community, was introduced.
Yeah.
What that basically meant was it closed down all the buildings and all the organisations that used to look after people with mental health and said, no, put them out in the street, it's better for them to get back into society. The whole thing was just smashed to pieces.
And then there's people who say we need to come down hard and, you know, section people.
That's interesting. Quite recently, had a close friend of mine that went through some mental health, and the police had to be called. But they did not stay with her at the hospital.
No.
They did what they needed to do, and then made sure that the family knew, and then a family member then attended that. But they didn't stay with her. I've never seen that happen.
But did they follow through with a criminal investigation into the person? That's the whole point. They can't leave them, you see, at the hospital if there's still a question mark over
if
whether
they're
they
a
committed
danger,
crime.
if you have a mental health individual who is a danger to the public outside, surely the Met Police should be staying with them.
Well, yes, but for 8 or 10 hours, it's a waste of police resources, isn't it? There should be another department in this country that's given the responsibility to do that.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you both. We'll
That's
have
Mike
more...
Parry's pitch for Prime Minister.
Yes.
Harry.
Go
Thank
for
you,
me.
Bushel Shake as well. Right, in the next few moments, we'll be hearing more about the government's food price cap and what it could mean for the pound in your pocket. More to come on that in the next hour. We're GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Dubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 11 a.m. on Monday, the 29th of May. This is To The Point on GB News with Dawn Newsom and me, Emily Carver. This morning, host Philip Schofield hits back today. He says his critics bear a grudge. There is no toxicity, and the show is a family. Is he protesting too much, Dawn?
Yes, actually, it's a short answer. And meanwhile, a food price cap's reportedly on the table at Downing Street, but retailers insist it won't solve the problem. But what do you think? Get in touch at gbviews@gbnews.com.
And this makes me a bit jealous. GB News will be on the beach to sample the mood and some ice cream on a sunny bank holiday. All of that to come on To The Point. And as always, please do let us know your thoughts throughout the show. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.com. But first, before all of that, let's get the latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Good morning to you. It's 11:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. ITV's in crisis talks following the scandal surrounding Philip Schofield's affair with a younger male colleague. That is according to GB News sources. It's understood it could cost the broadcaster tens of millions of pounds in lost advertising revenue, with executives bracing themselves for a dramatic drop in their share price. Philip Schofield hit back at claims of toxicity at This Morning in a statement. It was released less than half an hour before the show went to air this morning. He said it's the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice. Police from the National Crime Agency will help tackle people smuggling gangs operating in North Africa. The Times is reporting that officers will work with authorities in Tunisia and Algeria to prevent an expected surge of migrants heading for Europe this summer. The Italian government predicts up to 400,000 people will attempt to cross the Mediterranean into Italy. That's 4 times as many as last year. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall says this is the right course of action.
It is completely correct that we start looking at where people are coming from, where the conflict zones are, and working with those countries to ensure that they don't come through to mainland Europe and make their way across and then into the Channel. And it takes an international community to stop these things, which is now what we're starting to see.
At least 4 people have died after a boat carrying more than 20 passengers, including tourists, sank in northern Italy. Those on board were celebrating a birthday when the boat capsized and sank during a violent storm on Lake Maggiore. 19 survivors managed to swim to shore and they avoided serious injury. The Met Police will no longer attend emergency calls if they're linked to mental health incidents. That is from September, unless there's an immediate threat to life. It is to give police more time to focus on solving and preventing crime. A Met Police spokesperson told The Guardian the force is failing Londoners twice by sending officers rather than medical professionals for mental health incidents and by preventing police from fulfilling their core roles. The Lib Dems are claiming investigations into around 80 robberies a day were closed last year without a suspect being identified. The party says it commissioned research that shows 30,000 muggings went unsolved in 2022 across England and Wales. It's accused Home Secretary Suella Braverman of becoming embroiled in endless scandals, while violent criminals are being let off the hook. Meanwhile, witnesses to major crimes, such as the Manchester Arena bombing, will be offered counselling, restorative justice and advocacy. The services are part of a £600,000 expansion of current homicide services that are offered to bereaved families. Anyone who directly witnesses a major crime and any young person or child who knows the victim can be referred. World leaders have congratulated President Erdogan after his victory in Turkey's election last night. Rishi Sunak says the UK will look forward to growing trade with Turkey and tackling security threats. Joe Biden says they'll continue to work together on shared global challenges as NATO allies. The leaders of Ukraine and Russia were also quick to congratulate Erdogan on his re-election for another 5 years. Ukraine has been hit with a fresh wave of Russian air missile strikes this morning. Authorities say the main target was the centre of the capital, Kyiv, with residents urged to take shelter and they were warned about falling debris. Most of the missiles were shot down by Ukraine's air defences, and it follows a wave of drone strikes on Sunday, the biggest attack on the capital since the beginning of the invasion. Ukraine's indicated over the weekend they are close to launching the much-awaited counter-offensive. An iridescent fish with sharp fangs are among species of creatures discovered 2,000 metres under the sea. Scientists from the Natural History Museum took samples from the water around the islands of St Helena and Ascension. One of the findings was a Sloane's viperfish that's believed to have the biggest tooth-to-head ratio of any animal. Some specimens could be completely new discoveries, however, but further analysis will have to be done before that is verified. This is GB News. More as it happens. Now, back to Dawn and Emily.
We are back with some breaking news this morning. Philip Schofield has hit back at his critics in a statement on Instagram, where else he wrote, "Now I no longer work on This Morning," he tagged them. "I am free to say this. I hope you have noticed that it's the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice. This Morning is the best show to work on with the best people. In all the years I worked there was no toxicity. You can listen to those persistently loud voices if you like, but the thousands of guests over the years, thousands of staff and crew, hundreds of presenters and contributors all know it is a family of wonderful, talented, kind, hard-working people."
Right, and that comes after Dr. Raj Singh, not someone included in that message from Philip. As Raj is a long-time contributor to the show. He claimed he raised concerns about the toxic culture of This Morning and then lost his job.
Is he one of those TV doctors?
Yes,
yes, there he is.
He is, yeah.
There he is.
He was on the show for a long, long time as well.
So he wasn't happy, apparently, he's telling us now. In response to that statement, an ITV spokesperson said the channel was fully committed to providing every opportunity for anyone who works with them to raise any concern or comment they may have.
Which is what they're doing now, kind of, isn't it? They're raising their concerns. They just happen to be doing it on the front pages of the newspapers.
Well, yes. So joining us now is the showbiz journalist, Rebecca Twomey. Good morning, Rebecca. I'd like to get your... Good morning.
The story won't end.
I know, it won't end, and I don't suppose it will for a long time. It's still on a lot of the tabloid front covers anyway. This statement on Instagram, Philip Schofield has put out. What do you make of it? Your reaction?
Well, I mean, this is very much comes down to perspectives. And I'm assuming from Philip Schofield's perspective is that there was nothing wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. And he's got lots of supporters. But really, it's interesting that he's sort of peddling this narrative right now, because there's lots of voices coming in. And the thing is, journalists have known about this for a very long time. There's been a lot of rumours, a lot of speculation, and a lot of sources coming forward. And they've not necessarily been able to report on it. And until now, it did feel like Schofield was, beyond sort of, any kind of critique. It's very interesting that now he's sort of putting himself in the victim mode. I think the best thing he could do would be to step away and just let it all die down. But obviously, he's been dropped by his agent, which was a very big agent. So he's sort of not really having the right advice at the moment. And it's going to be very interesting what happens with Holly, because luckily it's half term right now and she always has half term off. But will she be coming back to the show? And what I think is quite concerning is that somehow she might end up also being the fall guy for this, which is just very interesting narrative because she's a woman and she has to sort of, you know, take account of someone else's behaviour, because we've seen it so many times in cancel culture that generally women don't come across as well as some men seem to recover from kind of, you know, criticism and scandal.
That's a good point, isn't it?
It is. Well, she's not the only woman, is she? Because obviously there is Philip Schofield's wife, who's been married to for 25 years, has got 2 daughters, and obviously his mum, who is 85 years old, is also being dragged into it.
Do you know what? It actually makes me feel a bit sick, actually, that statement from Philip Schofield, just because playing the victim... It's just so... This is where ego gets in the way, isn't it? Because he could have just sat back and kept quiet for a little bit. But no, he has to get onto Instagram and deliver this statement saying everyone's against me, the world's against me, blah, blah, blah.
You know what,
I don't think it looks good.
No, you know what, Emily? The one thing that I'm constantly surprised about with this story after a long, long time in newspapers is the golden rule, if you're a celebrity, used to be never complain, never explain, because all you were doing was giving the newspapers a few more days of front pages. But this story has been told in statements from day one. I mean, we have Holly also issuing statements. I mean, I'm not sure that Holly isn't helping dig her own grave on this one.
Well, I think if we believe in the freedom of speech, then we really should allow Mr. Schofield to have his say and to have that platform on Instagram. But Holly's statement was very telling because obviously her and Philip were very, very good friends. I think she did sort of rely on him a lot with her career, and you could see her building confidence. And as she became more confident and her career seemed to take off away from Philip, I think that's really where things started to sort of fall apart a bit when she stood in for Ant McPartling on I'm a Celebrity. When she took that, I think this is when we first started to see tension building. And really right now, I think it's about everyone saving their own skin. But what really is under question here is what was going on behind the scenes and how much did Holly know? And that's very much what I think Holly's going to try and have to salvage and save herself from, is that she wasn't really aware of what was going on, or if she was, she wasn't able to communicate that. And we don't even know if she did voice concern with the execs at ITV, because when you're talking about a toxic work culture, that's very open to perspective, because you look at what happened with Dominic Raab earlier this year, you know, what considered bullying to some people might just be some harsh words to another. So it's all about perspective. You know, Philip's been around a very long time in the industry, a long time. And as we know, TV is quite a difficult industry to work in, and there are some powerful characters. So when you look at toxic work culture, what exactly is it? Because when you look at what happened with Ellen DeGeneres in the US, huge talk show host, and as soon as it started becoming exposed, her behaviour to crew members, to guests, that was the end. She lost 1 million viewers, and that was the end of her career.
Do you think, I mean, what I think a lot of people who are watching this show this morning and listening to it on the radio are struggling with is how can you have such a close working relationship, I mean, literally TV husband and wife, and not know? And that's why I'm saying about Holly issuing a statement saying sort of like, you know, I was lied to, I knew nothing. And yet in 2020, the very year Philip made that very dramatic announcement about his sexuality live on the show, Holly chose, literally at the same time, to sever ties with their joint management agency and set up her own management agency. So there are those of us out here going, well, that was suspicious timing at the very best.
Well, that's the thing, but I think the thing as well, sorry, Rebecca, but the thing is that these are amazing jobs. These are coveted positions, so you want to hold on to them for as long as possible. And if that means potentially brushing some things under the carpet or keeping stum, then so be it.
The pile of dirt under that carpet has got me up there like that.
Yeah, people are tripping over it left, right and centre, that's for sure.
But do you think people are suspicious about who is actually telling the truth now, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mistrust. I think that's part of the problem for Holly. I'm talking about Holly specifically, because how much did she know? Did she act on the information she was given? For anyone who may have watched Apple TV's The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston, you can really see the dynamics there. And I think it was a very sort of accurate portrayal of what goes on in breakfast TV. And with Holly, did she know, didn't she know? But even if she did know, like you've just said, she's in a very privileged position. She's worked very hard to get there. She knows everyone wants her job. So really, she's got to try and save her job and her brand. And what we've been seeing recently as all of this scandal's been, you know, evolving, she's really stepped back and been making lots of moves to protect brand Holly, because it's a very powerful brand. And like I said, I think she knew for a long time that there were tensions and things were going wrong behind the scenes, because why else would she set up her own agency? It was at around the point, I think, when she did I'm a Celebrity, when her career started taking off, and she was wasn't as dependent on Philip because they were presenting together for over a decade. They have a very, very strong relationship, and she really needed him. I think as soon as she stopped needing him, I think that's where the relationship between them fell apart, and she had to start making moves to protect her brand and to protect her future. But, you know, in real sort of honesty, what has Holly done wrong? She's been doing her job very well. She's professional. Why does she have to be the fall person for this scandal? I'm quite confused myself. Is it just the fact that she was privy to certain information, as were a lot of people on this morning, and maybe she didn't have the confidence to speak out, or maybe she wasn't allowed to speak out? We just don't know that.
Interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Rebecca Twomey, for joining us on this bank holiday.
That's very generous of Rebecca there, I think.
I think, yeah. I do feel for Holly because I think she was damned if she did and damned if she didn't, to be honest with you. It's a very hard situation to be in, and it is, as you say, they're such prestigious jobs, aren't they? To walk away from them is incredibly hard. So let's see.
But sometimes, you know, morality, who knows see what people at home think, eh?
In TV, darling, you're joking. Apart from here, obviously. But as the show this morning, that is, went to air this morning, this is how hosts Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary addressed the recent coverage. What did they have to say?
We are starting today with Giles and Sonia on The Morning View. Now, we all know we happen to be in the news at the moment, and of course we appreciate that, but just from both of us and the whole team here, the crew, the guys downstairs, we love making this show for all of you.
Yeah, we really do, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to continue to do that. So let's go on with our first news story. Giles.
We are very...
Bless them, that was awkward.
That was awkward. That was nearly as awkward as when they had to announce that, you know, best broadcaster has left us, you know, when Schofield announced it. And they were like they're reading an obituary out, wasn't it? And that wasn't much better, was it?
Please keep us. Please keep watching.
Hello, we're here. But it's
we're just as good as Holly and Phil.
Exactly. And we're actually squeaky clean.
We're squeaky clean, whiter than white. Lovely, lovely. Although Alison has been getting a lot of love, actually. People seem to really like Alison Hammond. She does seem quite witty, actually, which is nice, because Philip and Holly aren't the most humorous, are they?
Well, they're not. I mean, Alison does have a great sense of humour, which, to be honest with you, should be needing it, looking at some of the papers over the last few days. And a couple of times I've been over to this morning to do some jobs. She has been absolutely lovely.
Oh, well, there you go.
She is an absolute sweetheart.
I can't really say I've never met the woman.
No, she is genuinely very lovely. So, well, good luck to, you know, everyone that's working over there that is now concerned for their jobs, because, you know, there are lots of young producers there that are, you know,
they'll get new jobs.
Money. Right, yeah. Should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
I still have my Gordon the Gopher story though.
Okay, well, we'll do that. Let's say half an hour.
All right, OK, it's very good. I nearly killed him.
Goodness me.
OK, right, now, from September, the Met Police will no longer attend to emergency calls linked to mental health incidents unless there's an immediate threat to life.
This is reportedly aimed at giving the police more time to detect and prevent crime. So joining us for more is the former Met Police Detective Chief Superintendent. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Can you tell us a bit about this policy and why you think the Met Police has decided to do this?
Well, I think we shouldn't get too scared and jump up and down about it, because the Met Police are still going to attend mental health calls, people disordered, causing trouble in the street, threatening people's lives, because quite frankly there is no one else to come and do it. But I think what Mark Rowley is trying to do here, and I smile at it because I think his appointment by politicians was because they thought they were getting a commissioner that they could control. He's bringing into perspective the fact that mental health services and social services have been completely run down, so there are large numbers of people on our street who are not getting the correct mental health treatment, not taking their antipsychotic drugs and so on. And it's always the police who are being called to collect them, sometimes with fights and so on, take them to an A&E unit because there are no mental health hospitals that will receive them in great numbers anymore. And then police officers literally spend maybe 8 or 10 hours guarding someone who's mentally disordered in an A&E unit until they can get treatment or receive their drugs. So what this is, in a kind of way, is how can I put it? A forceful cry for help to government and say, do something about this and don't keep using the police as, if you like, the dustbin men sorting out yet another social services problem because there's no finance for it. And interestingly enough, I was going to come on this morning to talk to you about the fact that it's been announced that 30,000 street robberies last year were not investigated. Well, in fact, those two stories are linked because the way you deal with street robberies is have an active physical presence on the street, patrolling, who knows the local areas, who will immediately run up or grab the victim, put them in the car, drive round and say, is it him, is it them? You put a quick cordon round the estate where it's occurred. But of course, if all your officers are tied up guarding mental health patients because there's no one else to do it, then there's no one to prevent the robbery. So,
but hang on, Kevin, if these people with mental health problems are committing crimes, even if it's public nuisance, even if it's those kind of crimes, surely the police do need to be involved. You can't just palm them off on social services if there is criminal activity.
No, well, that's what my point was. The police are still going to turn up because there's no one else. The public are going to phone saying there's a man going mental. You know, that's the phrases they'll use, smashing our windows, screaming and shouting, running around with a sword. Of course, the police are still going to turn up. But the reason I smile at this is I suspect Mark Rowley was appointed because both the Home Secretary and the Mayor of London thought they were going to appoint someone who would be their patsy and that they would control and never say boo to a goose. And in fact, Mark Rowley is turning out to be his own man and he's actually starting to push back. And although I know him really well, actually, we're in the same cohort, he's not my cup of tea. I'm starting to be quite impressed by the way he's starting to raise issues and make people feel uncomfortable about what's happened when you dismantle social services, mental health, and so on, and other areas. The bottom line is you're not going to solve those 30,000 personal robbery cases if there's no police officers on the street, because they're all tied up responding quite rightly to people who are concerned about mentally disordered people on the street, scaring them, threatening them, smashing windows, running in front of the traffic, and so on.
Kevin Hurley, thank you so much for joining us today on this Bank Holiday Monday. Sobering statistics there, and I think everyone watching and listening this morning will agree with Kevin there that basically we need more police on the street. That's the one
Which we have been promised for quite a while now.
Yes.
But we've got breaking news, don't we?
We do have breaking news. Yes, this is Eamon Holmes, our very own Eamon Holmes has tweeted that Philip Schofield has put out a delusional statement. Like Holly, he puts it on Insta stories, so if it goes wrong, there is no record after 24 hours. I'm reluctant to give the liar any more publicity, but believe me, Pip, if you are looking for a fight, you have picked on the wrong person.
Goodness me.
Wow, that's really
just
strong
to explain
stuff.
To those who don't have Instagram, on Instagram you can post a picture that lasts forever on your page, or you can put up a clip or a video or a statement or a picture as a story, and that only lasts for 24 hours. So this is what Philip and Holly also with their statements have done. So that's what Eamon is picking up on.
A very, very strong statement. Feelings are obviously running very high about this subject, so we'll be coming back to it. But there's also other stories happening. I know it's hard to believe. Still to come. We'll be out and about across the country and getting the latest on your bank holiday weather. You're with GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People's Channel.
Good morning. It is 11:26 on Bank Holiday Monday. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, and the lovely Emily Carver.
It is indeed. So, for some more small businesses in towns and cities across England, this bank holiday means a chance to win back income lost during the winter months. It's been very sunny indeed, so hopefully they are doing quite well.
Absolutely.
Our reporters are out and about this morning. Will Hollis is in Skegness, and our Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire, is in Glasgow. Good morning to you both. Let's start with you, Will.
Hi, yeah, we're in Skegness. I know you can't see the beach, but it's only a stone's throw away from where I am. But what you probably can see behind Brad here is all the fantastic ice creams and all the slushies and all the donuts as well, because when people come to places like Skegness, they're not just coming for the beach and the sea, they're coming for the goodies as well. But we've got a backdrop that isn't just the beach, we've got the backdrop that's a cost of living crisis. And right now, food inflation is running at around 19%. So, Bradley, when people are coming to Skegness for this bank holiday weekend, are they still spending the same money that they usually would?
They're spending money, they're still coming to the kiosks, but we have noticed a downturn in what people are spending. So they might be going for a smaller product or maybe not having toppings, and they might be going for our kind of plain whippy, which we've managed to keep at the same price this year, despite the increase in costs that we've seen to the business.
You've been working over this weekend. What's it been like? Have people been coming to Skegness, even if they know that it's going to maybe cost them a little bit more if they do want to do the things they usually do?
Yeah, I think what's great about Skegness is that it's a really great place. Whether you want to come and spend no money or you want to spend quite a lot, there's something to do. The beach is amazing, it's free, you can explore the great scenery and all the things to do here. So there's still lots of foot traffic. We just got to hope that the sun stays out.
How long have you been doing this for? You're a traditional ice cream man, we'll call it. How long have you been working in places like Speedy's?
Oh wow, I think from the age of being a young child, I've worked in a lot of the ice cream businesses around here. It's what you do as a young child, you work over the summer, and it's so I've been doing it probably since I was about 13, 14 now at various businesses around the area.
And so you know the businesses, you know the customers that come here. Do you notice a change in their habits over the last 10 years, or is it only in the last couple of years when we've had cost of living and the pandemic?
I suppose in the last 10 years there's been a bit more creativity with the products, so having like featured chocolate bars in products, having more waffle cones, having more new toppings like Oreo toppings and maybe crunchy. But I think over the last couple of years we've gone back to the more basic products just because of those costs of those additional products. And so I think what we're going to probably see is this year it's going to be lots of standard whippies or maybe smaller products. And then as the economy starts to recover, we might go back to that kind of where people have a bit more fun with what they put on the products.
And there are people here in the shop. I mean, I've turfed them out of the way. They've opened a whole nother queue just so that people can still get their ice creams. We're going to let Brad get back to work, but we're here all day in Skegness seeing what people are spending their cash on.
Lovely, thank you, Will. Michelle Dewberry was up in Skegness, Skeg Vegas she called it, for a camper van holiday not too long ago. She had a fabulous time.
The glamour.
I
love the fact we've closed down an ice cream queue. We're going to be well loved, aren't we? Right, thank you so much for the Will. Right, let's pop up to Scotland now, where we join Tony Maguire to tell us what Scotland's looking like on this sunny bank holiday.
Hello, good morning. Yes, well, I am not by the beach. There's a bit of a giveaway behind me. I'm in a looping scoop on Great Western Road in Glasgow, and I'm joined here by Stuart De Rossi, who's the manager, and who's going to tell us a little bit about the amazing gelato that we have here today. So tell me a wee bit about what you guys, how you approach a bank holiday Monday.
Yeah, we've obviously seen this coming. We knew it was going to be a long weekend, so we've been hiring more staff as well, and it's actually worked out really good because we've got a new store opening down the south side. So we've been hiring new staff for that, and again that just helps us. We use that staff in here for the nice sunny day, because as soon as the sun comes out here, queues out the door. Right out the door.
And obviously it's not out the door just now because we've got a wee sneak access today. But tell me, I mean, obviously there's a lot of talk today about the cost of ice cream. Now, slight sort of twist for us here is gelato, right? So how much does, the typical portions of gelato go for before people head over to the Botanics?
Yeah, we sell gelato at 1 scoop, 2 scoop or 3 scoop. It's $3.50 for 1, $4.50 for 2 and $5.50 for 3. So that's the kind of price band you're talking about. And you can either have it in a tub or a cone as well, so you get the choice.
And if you want 4, you just put the cone in the tub, right? Upside down. So tell me, obviously that is a bit pricier, but I'm sensing some Italian blood in you. This is authentic. It's made on site. Tell me more.
Yeah. We make all our own gelato. We make it with fresh paste and stuff, all from Italy. It's all proper dairy ice cream as well. Even with vegan stuff as well. We put a lot of attention and care into the presentation, but also just that flavour as well, because we want it popping. When you get a wee scoop of ice cream, it's got to hit you, innit?
That's it. So Scotland is looking absolutely magical over the next 10 days or so. Arguably, Glasgow is one of the best places to be in the UK over the next week to build up that tan. And maybe next week we'll also be doing a report on the flying pigs.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Tony. I want an ice cream now. But still to come, more developments on Phillips.
It's nice to see businesses doing such a roaring trade.
Yeah, we're sitting in an office. Where's the ice cream? Come on. Right, but we're going back to Schofield, the saga this morning with Eamon Holmes hitting out. And you won't want to miss what he's said. Bringing you up to speed on all of that. But first, here's your morning news with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning to you. It is 11:32 here in the GB newsroom. Well, let's start with that Philip Schofield story, of course, the latest on that. ITV is in crisis talks following the scandal surrounding his affair with a younger male colleague. That is according to GB News sources. GB News understands it could cost the broadcaster tens of millions of pounds in lost advertising revenue, with executives bracing themselves for a dramatic drop in their share price tomorrow. Schofield has rejected claims there was a toxic culture on this morning. In a statement released shortly before the show went to air, he said it is the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show who seem to have the loudest voice. Meanwhile, GB News presenter and former ITV This Morning host Eamon Holmes has responded to the Post, saying this: Schofield has just put out a delusional statement. Like Holly, he puts it on Insta stories. So if it goes wrong, there's no record after 24 hours. I'm reluctant to give the liar any more publicity, but believe me, Pip, if you're looking for a fight, you have picked on the wrong person. There's the words of Eamon Holmes. Police from the UK are to help authorities in North African countries break up people smuggling gangs. Officers from the National Crime Agency will work with their counterparts to stem a predicted surge in migration. According to The Times, the Italian government believes up to 400,000 migrants will attempt to reach Europe via Italy this summer. That's 4 times as many as last year. Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick will begin a 5-day tour of North Africa and Europe this week. And at least 4 people have died after a boat carrying more than 20 passengers, including tourists, sank in northern Italy. Those on board were celebrating a birthday when the boat capsized and sank during a storm on Lake Maggiore. 19 survivors swam to shore and avoided serious injury. That's it for the moment, but more on all of our stories, you can get that by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It is 11:38 on your bank holiday Monday morning. This is To The Point on GB News with Dawn Neeson and Emily Carver. Well, let's just recap the latest breaking news this morning on the Philip Schofield story. GB News presenter Eamon Holmes has branded Philip Schofield delusional and a liar after the former This Morning host claimed there was no toxicity on the show.
I saw someone wrote, yes, there wasn't any toxicity for Phil because he was the toxicity.
He was the toxic. And this is what Dermot O'Leary said about the show this morning on This Morning.
But we are starting today with Giles and Sonia on The Morning View. Now, we all know we happen to be in the news at the moment, and of course we appreciate that. But just from both of us and the whole team here, the crew, the guys downstairs, we love making this show for all of you.
Yeah, we really do. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to continue to do that. So let's go on with our first news story. Giles.
We are very...
Well, joining us for more is our London reporter, Lisa Hartle. Good morning, Lisa. She's not ready for us, Dawn. Well, what did you make of Alison and Dermot there? They did look a bit odd, actually, sat there.
I think they did. I think it's incredibly uncomfortable for them, and you do feel sorry for them. I think we have Lisa joining us. Lisa, you finished your application to get on that sofa, obviously.
Sorry, it's so windy here.
I said, good morning.
Finding it very hard to hear anything.
Good morning, Lisa. You are live outside Television Centre this morning, where This Morning is currently being put out from. So what's happening there? Can you bring us up to speed on the latest developments?
Yeah, of course. So obviously This Morning has broadcast as usual today with Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary. And as you said there, they did recognise the fact that so much of the show is in the news at the moment. They've said, we know we happen to be in the news at the moment. Of course, we appreciate that. But just from the both of us and the whole team here, we love making this show for you all. And there has been some speculation around the show's future, with rumours of perhaps there are crisis talks going on, and you know, that the show could be in jeopardy. But ITV have come out and said there are no plans to axe the show that has been running for 35 years. Last night we had Dr. Raj Singh, who was a guest presenter on the show for over 10 years. He took to Twitter to share the fact that years ago he went and actually raised his concerns about toxicity at the programme. He took that up with the bosses, and ITV have responded by saying there was an independent investigation that took place at the time and no examples or evidence of bullying or harassment was found. Now today, Philip Schofield has taken to Instagram, and he has shared in a post, I hope you've noticed it's the same handful of people with a grudge against me or the show that seem to have the loudest voices. This Morning is the best show and there is no toxicity. He went on to say that there are thousands of guests and people that have worked on the show over the years that could also back this up. Now, in response to this, as you've touched on there, Eamon Holmes has responded to the post on Twitter, calling this statement delusional, saying, like Holly, he puts it on Insta stories, so if it goes wrong, there is no record after 24 hours. I'm reluctant to give the liar any more publicity, but believe me, Pip, if you're looking for a fight, you picked on the wrong person. And of course, there are concerns that what will happen with the share price tomorrow when the markets open, and what effect that will have on the show as that ripples through.
Lisa, just quickly as well, front pages this morning, and not just advertisers who are thinking of pulling out, but also celebrities. Have you seen any people going into the show this morning? I know they have to walk through just where you're walking past there. Any reaction from anyone walking past, any celebrities going into the show, commenting on what's happening?
No. I think there's a different entrance, or perhaps people are taking a different way in because we haven't seen anyone so far. But I'll keep an eye out.
Right, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. That's Lisa Hartle, our London reporter
People
there.
sneaking through the back, not to be seen.
Well, because I have worked over there quite a bit, and there is a side entrance that you can go in rather than walking through the main entrance. So
I'm not sure I'd want to be, you know, a contributor on This Morning. Well, this is a bit awkward, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing now. I mean, it's not just advertisers who are getting cold feet, and the main show sponsor, which is a car dealership, I think, or a car rent, whatever they do, but they've pulled out of sponsoring for the autumn. The contract was up in any case, and they're saying the contract was up, we weren't renewing. But you do have to wonder, and there is another story now.
Well, they can always come to GB News, can't they?
Yes, exactly.
Our fabulous viewers, always tuning in.
Would you want to be associated with that show at the moment?
No, you probably wouldn't. But we are going to move on to the headlines. We have got a wonderful panel. Our wonderful panel is back. Political commentator Bushra Sheikh and Mike Parry both join us now to look at our panel stories. Bushra, you want to talk about something a little bit different. That troublesome TikTok star in inverted commas, Mizzy.
Mizzy, the TikTok prankster. Yeah, I want to talk about him because I think he's still so current and relevant and everyone's speaking about him on social media. For me, you know what? It actually highlights a very dangerous culture that's existing amongst a new generation of youngsters because he's a teenager. He is inciting what I would also believe fear in the public. And recently, I watched a video of him where he was trying to take over or fiddle around with the buttons on the train.
Well, I haven't seen that one.
It was bizarre. He went into, like, let's just say, you know, where you operate the train from and was fiddling with all the buttons, which could have potentially caused an accident or something, all in the name of being a prankster online. And then obviously because of that, he breached the previous court order and then was taken in again by the police. But I want to just highlight this because a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, we need to help him and restore him. Obviously something's gone wrong, but we also need to call this stuff out.
He might just be a wrong-un, an old-fashioned wrong-un. And £365, which was the fine initially, which he was to pay back £30 a month, I believe, clearly wasn't a deterrent, was it, Dawn?
No, this has not been a prankster. Pranks are funny. This is, you know, he's
a criminal.
Stealing people's dogs, breaking into people's homes, telling women, you know, do you want to die? This isn't funny. This is, as you say, he's just a brainless thug. And, you know, I actually resent talking about him.
Mike, do you think he needs more than a slap on the wrist?
There's a 50-year gap between me and Mizzy, so I'm going to call it a generation problem, OK? I simply don't understand what the boy's all about.
I'm going to call it an idiot problem.
Well, I was going to say a generation problem. I don't understand what it's all about, and I don't really want to know
It's just embarrassing. If that was my son and I was his mother, it would be absolutely embarrassing for me to see him do that, and I don't understand.
I don't think he'd get away with it if he was your son.
Family intervention. Of course he wouldn't.
Of course he would.
Oh, no way.
If he was my son, I'd lock him up in his room without dinner.
Take these phones away.
Mike, should we move on to your story in the Express before you start smacking his bum as well, young lady?
Goodness me.
Yeah, this is about civil servants, OK? Civil servants are more likely to work from home than anybody else. I'm
gobsmacked, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us what's new. But I intensely dislike the civil servant in this country who feels entitled to be able to only go to the office less than half the time that you're being paid to do your job for, right? To take the London waiting allowance and not give it back because you're not travelling, and to enjoy the massive benefits of being employed by the state, which include a bumper pension when you get to a reasonably early age, now that we're all living into our 80s and that kind of stuff, and don't seem to think that they owe the people who pay their wages, the taxpayer, 100% commitment to the job. Why do we think so many government agencies are not working? You know, passport,
Mike, you just
driving
old-fashioned,
licence.
you know, working from home.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, I've never been more productive than when I work from home.
What nonsense. We all work in industries where you can create 3 ideas in 5 minutes by talking to your colleague who's sitting on the next desk. That's what it's all about. It's about creation. It's about mixing ideas, sparking energy, getting on with that. Civil servants don't have any energy. Civil servants are people without energy, without industry, without initiative, and actually they have gold-plated lives. I dislike them intensely if they're doing only 44% of a working week at home, and I wish that
there are some, let me just hold you, there are some very talented people working in the civil service, people I know myself who do go into the office. Well, I can't name names on this channel, but I do know people who are hard-working, but yes, I think you can get away with doing the bare minimum. I think that is fair to say. Also, I read reports not that long ago, I think you'll probably remember, how long COVID disproportionately high in the civil service.
Funny that. And meanwhile, there are lots of working-class jobs that you can't do from home, like cleaning the streets, delivering the
my
food
carpet
to the
fitter who comes and
supermarket.
fits my carpets last week, he can't work from home. And also, he won't be able to get to me once Sadiq Khan brings in the low emission zones.
Mike, we have to blame this from the lockdown culture that happened, which was the working from home. People were pushed to work from home. And now they can't seem to kind of get back.
No, we have to blame the idle. We have to blame the idle. These people are idle. Don't we understand that one of the the biggest problems in this country is lack of productivity in all areas of business. Well, it's not very productive to only turn up at the office 44% of the time.
So, Mike...
It's an outrage.
Mike, do you agree?
And I'm outraged.
You are always outraged, aren't you? So do you agree with Suella Braverman the other week when she said Brits are actually forgetting how to work?
Yes, I do. I think the culture of work is seen almost now as a sort of alternative way of life. You know what I mean? Amongst young people themselves, what are the figures? Something like 80% of people under 25 don't think it's necessary to get a job because they can exist without one.
Well, you know what, actually, a lot of younger people, to their credit, are extremely entrepreneurial. And a lot of young people, too, have multiple jobs, lots of side hustles going on. You know, the day job's not enough. People are doing bits and bobs, whereas it's older people, actually, older generation, this is controversial, who had jobs for life. Because you don't really get that so much now.
No, jobs for life. I mean, look,
you could have a job for life.
I'm entering early middle age, and I still want to get up and get out of bed and work every day. You've got a cough in your throat there, Dawn.
I'm just putting the other side. Devil's advocate.
I believe my generation knows what a hard day's work for.
But things are tech now, Mike. Things are online. Things are tech savvy. We've got all of these different ways to work now, and it's very, very different. And the same level of productivity that you could do in an office, you can do from working not from an office.
Yeah,
it is at that level. And you can earn even double the amount of money that you earn from being in an office versus just chilling at home and working.
I think the workplace also helps your mental health enormously, to mix with other people, to exchange ideas, to interconnect socially, and it's giving us all sorts of problems working from home, including people getting depressed.
Yeah, young people are miserable.
Exactly.
Not all the young people, but we do have a bit of a crisis, don't we? We always talk about mental health crisis.
We do have a mental health
and working from your bedroom, which is a lot of what young people will be doing because they live in flat shares. Working from your bedroom all day is a bit miserable.
I'd rather work in McDonald's.
I'm going to move on, because I can, actually. Bush, we're coming to your story, which is actually quite a fun story, isn't it? Amir Khan in The Sun, pulling out all the stops for his and his wife Farrell's 10th wedding anniversary.
It's their 10th wedding anniversary. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, and I thought it was important, was because they have gone through so much controversy surrounding their marriage over this time, about his affairs or his cheating, and then when she ousted his mother, and we saw it spread across the entire mainstream media. And for an Asian family, that is a huge thing. A Muslim Asian family in this country, that's a big thing. So I am saying I'm very pleased and happy that he's going to be whisking her off to a luxury tropical destination for the 10th anniversary, and good on them. Because
it's all for show, though, isn't it? You know, the bigger the...
are very cynical this
morning, it's lovely, Emily.
You're just talking about all these cheating allegations.
Because he had them, but they've got through it, and I think it's important because the divorce rate's so high.
I think, you know, the bigger the show, the more likely something wasn't right.
The insinuation here is that Amir Khan is a very wealthy man because he's very good at what he does in a job, is actually, it's payback to the wife who he's not been terribly decent to consistently over the last 10 years. Is this what we're saying? Is it?
I don't think so. I think that them being together, I think it's challenging to be with somebody for so long, and good on them for making it to the 10th year, because divorce rates in this country are exponentially high, and if they can get through those types of challenges, it gives us hope that things can work. And good on him. If he's got the money, spend it on her. That's his wife. Who else is it there for?
Oh, that's nice.
Do you think she did the right thing for forgiving? Because he has been a bit of a naughty boy occasionally, hasn't he? Forgiving him and concentrating on saving their marriage.
But this is interesting, right? Because look, she also gets something. She wasn't really anybody before she married him. He had lots of money, he had status, he had clout. She took that for herself. So there has been an exchange. Whether that's an equal one, that's between them. But he did what he did, and she's forgiven him, and that's what matters.
Golly gosh, well, I mean, I
can't believe you call me a cynic. I thought I was just being realistic there.
Well, that's a fine line, isn't it? Some of this stuff. Right, one quick final story with you, Mike. The billionaire boss of Amazon wants to see...
That's right.
In an extraordinary support boat.
Oh, it's fun. I love Jeff Bezos. He's one of the richest men in the world, and I like rich people. Rich people are good people, as far as I'm concerned, particularly if they've made all their money themselves. He's got the world's tallest yacht, OK? And that's because it's got masts on it. It's like an old-fashioned sailing ship. But not only is this ship, which cost him God knows how many hundreds of millions to make, not only is that a fine vessel, it's followed around by another very big vessel which has all the sports equipment on it, including the helicopter and the helicopter pad and all the, you know, the fun games that people who have yachts own. They have these, what they call motorbikes, water motorbikes.
Yeah.
You jump on them in the sea and you see them down at the Côte d'Azur and all that. So that carries all the toys behind the main yacht. But he's just an amazing man, Mr. Bezos. And...
But you know, Mike, there will be people who look at this as an exhibition of wealth.
Yes, it probably
and
is.
think it's, you know...
Yeah, but the other great thing about him is his life's been rejuvenated because he's met a new woman, but the new woman, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, is about the same age as him. She's in her 50s, you know what I mean? Which some would say
bits of her are.
That's very
Sorry,
nice,
no,
isn't
I
it?
mean,
Mike,
it's-
you
it's-
have to
now
admit
you're
that he's
being
worked
cynical.
hard. If he's worked hard for his money...
Unfortunately, Mike, we have to leave it there.
Yeah,
We've
fine.
run out of time. So, Mike, Barry, and Bushra Sheikh, thank you so much. We've come to the end of our show. It's
flown by.
Absolutely, again. Coming up next is GB News Live with Mark Longhurst. This is To The Point, and I'll be back on the show tomorrow with Andrew Pearce at 9:30. So please do join us. Thank you for watching this morning, and have a lovely bank holiday. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So through the rest of Bank Holiday Monday, it will be dry and fine and feeling pretty pleasant in any of that sunshine. And that's all due to this area of high pressure that's still dominating our weather across the UK. But this does mean that winds are coming round from the northeast into eastern areas. So this is just pushing a little bit more in the way of cloud from the North Sea and making things feel a little cooler here, especially across East Anglia and southeast England, where we've got quite a fresh breeze around today. Further west, there'll be plenty of sunny spells around, though it will be a little cooler than what we saw yesterday, though locally highs could still reach 21 or 22. Now, as we go into this evening, things will cool off quite readily, especially across northern and western areas, where we have got quite a few clear spells around tonight. But looking further east, and that cloud is going to push back in from the North Sea, so quite a cloudy night here. But that is going to help keep the temperatures up. So temperatures remaining in the double figures across some southeastern areas of England. As we start Tuesday morning, it'll be a cloudy morning across the far north of Scotland with maybe a touch of rain and drizzle here, as well as down eastern coast. But that cloud will start to burn back towards the North Sea through Tuesday daytime to leave plenty of sunny spells once again across the north and the west. And we might finally see 24 or 25 recorded across parts of western and central Scotland through Tuesday. But then it's quite a bit of rinse and repeat again as we go through Tuesday evening with the clearest skies in the west. So temperatures dropping most